Welcome to the NBA 2K G League show. I'm your host, Varun Chari, and welcome to the show. So, thank you again for always the support, everyone. Truly do appreciate it. It just always means a lot. So, let's just keep this going. I'm really excited for the summer for some really cool things. I think this is our final volume of this G League season of these lives. I'll continue to have content out this summer, but let's get straight to it. So first, I just need to post this on my Twitter account for anyone who is at 1:40 a.m. on West Coast time. Yes, it is very late, but I was like, yeah, I gotta get one more live out, before the season ends. So again, thank you for always rocking with me. I'm really curious, like, who do you think is going to win tomorrow? Like, the G League finals for the next week. Like, this is about to be some really good basketball. So I'm really curious your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. So I'm just going to go ahead, post this right now. Happening now. G League finals preview. Live stream. Posting this out on my Twitter for anyone who happens to be up right now. I think it may have some followers who are in different parts of the world, so hopefully wherever you are, you're able to tune in right now. But okay, let's see. I'm posting this, and then we'll get started in just a second. So make sure the link works. Perfect. I'm going to pin this to the Twitter profile. All right, awesome. Cool. Okay. Sweet. So let's get started here. All right. Well, welcome to the NBA 2K G League show. I'm your host, Varun Chari, and welcome to the show. So let's talk about some G League finals, everyone. Also, it's my first time, using the software where I'm able to kind of show my face. So it's something I'm trying. So hopefully this goes smoothly. So, but let's get to the episode today. So pretty much, let's talk about our finals preview here. So, we have a very interesting preview because we have a mix of, players who had played, part of the Kings Summer League, but also some players who were with the Hornets Summer League. We're getting a Hornets and Kings Summer League rematch here. Now, it's not every single player who was part of that team, but at least we're getting some guys here, right? Like we got John Elmore, who's part of that Sacramento Kings Summer League team. They did lose to the Hornets during Summer League. It was in the finals. But, there's some of the returning guys, like I do want to mention on the Hornets roster, but was PJ Hall, Jalen Sims, DJ Rodman, Tijon Salon, and Liam McNeely. Those were the 5 guys who were part of that Charlotte Hornets Summer League roster. Now, keep in mind that this Stockton Kings team was the same team who won last year. Now, not every single guy, but 5 of your guys from last year are on this team again, which is a crazy thing to look at because, it just shows the championship DNA that this team had. It's not like they had Mason Jones. They don't have really their two-way contract guys like, Daquan Plowden or Dylan Cardwell, even Isaiah Stevens. He's out right now. Like, they don't have their guys, and yet they pulled it off and made it back to the finals. I was there on Sunday when they played the South Bay Lakers. South Bay, they lost. Obviously, I'm rooting for them because I've been going to their games this year since I moved here to LA. But that was a really tough one. But, really notable because that was a really good game, a really good matchup. I respect a lot. I have a lot of respect for that team, a lot of respect for the coaching staff, the general manager, front office. Just huge props to the organization. Let me pull up their roster or like see if I can find their player list. So a lot of really good guys here. Now, right, I did say it earlier. Dylan Cardwell is not with the team. He actually got converted. They have Patrick Bowen Jr. So they have one of their two-way guys, but at least both of their other two-way guys aren't right now with the team. So still, I was really impressed with this Stockton Kings team. And Will Scott, give him his flowers because for somebody who has been with the organization with Stockton over the years and was able to come in, his first year really kind of now taking the helm of the head coaching position here with Stockton. Did a really fantastic job leading his team all the way back here to the finals. So some guys I do really want to shout out. I want to shout out Daquan Jeffries. It's a very interesting story because if you remember Daquan Jeffries, he was one of those three guys from the Karl-Anthony Towns trade who was sent to Charlotte from the New York Knicks side to make that trade work. And so he ended up actually staying with the Hornets last year, and technically it was a guaranteed contract if I remember right. So I mean, it wouldn't have made sense for the Hornets to cut him at the time, but he still made it with the team. Other guys didn't technically stay on to Hornets past training camp, but he did. So respect Daquan Jeffries because, in my opinion, I think he's probably one of the best players on Stockton right now. Here are his stats for this regular season. So as you see, he has 23.5 points per game. He's shooting 43.6% from three, 5.9 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. And look, with Daquan Jeffries, like you can definitely tell he's probably. I really, when I made my whole bracket for the G League playoffs, I didn't even think about the fact that they were going to actually send him back to play with Stockton even after he got caught up to Sacramento because I think he has that much of an impact on this team. So they're going to really need him to play well, I think. But you have to think about the returning guys. Like you also have John Elmore, who's been with the organization the past 2 years. You also got Dexter Dennis, who was part of that championship team last year. And then you also got some reserve guys like Antonio Davis, as well as also you have Gabe Levin, who was part of the team last year as well. So, just different guys that KJ Jones, the second, like all these guys, again, championship DNA from last year. It's pretty exciting to see that, going against this Hornets team. I think at the end of the day, I was looking kind of more at the stats, like, can find here. So if we look at offensive rating, so Greensboro Swarm, they're 120 points in the regular season. Now they have the top offensive rating in the entire G League in the regular season. Stockton is 9th. So they're top 10 at least, Stockton. But again, the most important thing is I think Daquan Jeffries is seeing how he can do, especially also Dexter Dennis. Now, if you look back here at the stats, let's kind of look here at the points. Like, if Greensboro wants to stop Stockton, into the series, they have to defend Daquan Jeffries, especially from the three. I cannot emphasize that enough because when I was watching the South Bay Lakers game the other day, I was insanely impressed by the fact that he was able to really knock down those shots. This is a 3-and-D type of guy. He's with. I remember he was with New York. He was a player that Tibbs really liked back then. But if he can, he's a guy who I think would be really interesting if he'll make it back to the NBA next year, or if he goes overseas. But again, you have to stop Daquan Jeffries if you're Greensboro. I'll kind of talk about who I'd be really interested in seeing, match up against him, but you have to stop Daquan Jeffries. And then you also need to be, cautious about Patrick Baldwin Jr., who I think is now like 7 feet tall. I'm not too sure, but I've definitely felt like Patrick Baldwin Jr. since I saw him play with with Capital City Go-Go. He's really, I think, improved his game. I see a lot more confidence in him. I think he's gotten better as a rebounder. So there's things about his game that I really find intriguing about Patrick Baldwin Jr. So definitely really impressed with him and his production. But again, another guy who can really score the ball. Jameer Nelson Jr., a guy who comes from basketball lineage, like with Jameer Nelson, as his dad. Again, another guy who can put up 20 points a game. Like Dexter Dennis, returning guy from last year, he can really get points on the board. It was almost like I felt last year was really between him and Mason Jones, who I thought could have won that MVP for the finals MVP. And so, again, really talented players on his team. So we'll really have to see what happens. I'm kind of curious, what is their shooting stats? So besides Daquan Jeffries, Antoine Davis, he's more of a, I would say, reserve player based on minutes in the rotation. But Mitchell Muscari, he can really shoot the ball. Like if he can get wide open, they set those screens from on the perimeter, and then he gets a 3-point shot. Like he can be really dangerous. You have to be able to stop Muscari in the series. You also then have to continue to keep in mind that John Elmore is a 37.6% 3-point shooter, so that's going to be huge too. And just stopping these guys like Jameer Nelson, Jalen Williams. Again, all these guys have the ability to knock down shots, and so you have to be really careful about that tomorrow when you're defending Stockton in the Greensboro Swarm Stockton Kings game. So just a few things I wanted to mention. What's really cool is that Daquan Jeffries here, because he was with the Hornets last year, he's going to be matching up against some of his former teammates and Jalen Sims, Marcus Garrett, and probably the most notable one, Tidjane Salaün, second-year Charlotte Hornets draft pick, who has been spending a lot of time with the Swarm this year as well, along with the Hornets' first-round pick, Liam McNeely. So let me pull up this team's stats for the regular season. Now, let's kind of go here to three-point percentage. I want to kind of top up their best three-point shooters. A little surprised. I thought Antonio Reeves, their two-way contract guy, would have actually been shooting probably like highest. But this is a team that I got to watch. I was actually really happy now in retrospect. I got to see them play against the Birmingham Squadron. And, shout them out. I was actually leaving to go back to my flight from Birmingham to LA, and my friend was with me. He was going back to DC, and we went right after the Birmingham Squadron Greensboro Swarm game, and then you never guess who pulled up. It was the Greensboro Swarm. Like it was the players. Coach DJ Baker. I just gotta congratulate him on the season he's having, and just continue to wish him success. But also the players, it was an awesome experience. So I am also just rooting for him too. Again, it's kind of hard for me to pick because I love both these G League teams. But from the actual analytics perspective, what I noticed is that this is a team who I think the biggest thing is I'm curious. I don't think they have a strong playmaker here. If you look, their strongest playmaker is Terrell Brown Jr. But besides that, I remember watching that game, like Antonio Reeves, he's a really good three-point shooter, but he's not really the strongest facilitator. I don't think that's really a big part of his game. If you can see here, 1.6 assists. And so that was something I did notice, and I'm really curious about how they do, moving the ball. And kind of going into a little bit more now to the Swarm here, PJ Hall, their two-way contract guy, also a guy who's on a Hornets Summer League roster, he's not available because he has an ankle injury. So it's going to be really important for Josiah Alik. Apologize if I mispronounced it yet, but it's really important for a guy like him to step up because he's playing a lot more minutes right now, with PJ Hall down. And so, TJ Salaün, their bigs, they have to really step up. So, again, that's going to be really important as we kind of watch these finals. Let's kind of see who are some of the best scorers. So we have Tidjane Salaün at getting 21 points per game. Obviously, it's only 4 games, but I think this is pretty standard because even when he was playing more in a tip-off tournament, he was averaging really big numbers there too. Keontae Johnson. Now, I was actually impressed by this because I didn't realize he was averaging 21 points per game and shooting 38% from three. And that's actually pretty impressive. I'm kind of a little bit surprised he didn't get called up this year. So hopefully next year, if he does stay around the G League, but he's somebody I for sure and definitely going to be looking at more at in this finals matchup. But Liam McNeely, I remember when I was watching that Squadron and Greensboro Swarm game, they really wanted him shooting a lot of threes, but also they were trying to get him to see what else he can do by moving the ball and facilitating. And so those were things that caught my attention. But you can definitely tell that they're trying to get him to continue to work on his three-point shooting. Obviously, shooting 32.6% from three is something that they're going to probably want those numbers to go up. But that's going to be something that if you're Stockton, you might want him to shoot those threes because he's shooting at 32.6% from three. PJ Hall, again, he's not. I don't believe he'll be available. But here's the big player that wasn't there when I was watching the Birmingham Squadron. Tosan Ivovan. I hope I got that one right. Every time I do like a live and I have to say his last name, I practice his last name for at least 5 minutes. So maybe it was closer this time. But with Tosan, this is a guy who was with Brooklyn last year, who had some good games. Was shooting the ball well. You see, 1.1 steals a game. Shooting 41% from three. So he's going to be a really huge piece, I think, for Greensboro. And I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing him as well. Maybe he'll be taking the assignment to defend Daquan Jeffries. I guess we'll kind of see. I'm a little bit curious. It'll probably be him or Keontae Johnson potentially. But then you have Jalen Sims, who's probably one of the longest tenured players on this Greensboro Swarm roster. I think he's been with the team since 2022. So this is a really huge deal for a guy like Jalen Sims, who's really been with this organization for quite a few years. And then you have Antonio Reeves, again, a really good three-point shooter. He's your two-way contract guy. Marcus Garrett, another returning guy who I believe is in his third year with the Swarm. And then, like I said, Terrell Brown Jr., whatever point guards. Caleb Grill, he's one of their guys they acquired during the trade stretch of the G League season when they sent Ibu Baji to Windy City and they got Caleb Grill back. Caleb Grill can really knock down the three-pointer at almost 44% from three. So, he just adds more shooting to this roster. And what's really impressed me too is even DJ Rodman. I've seen DJ Rodman. First of all, DJ Rodman's a very nice guy. Just want to shout him out. Like, very, very nice person. But, DJ Rodman, I was really impressed when I watched him with the Go-Go. When he was with the Go-Go, I believe he was one of the better rebounders at the time with the team before he got cut and then went to Maine. So I'm really happy to see his success. But shooting 42.6% from three, 3.5 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 0.6 steals. So, but keep in mind, he's also only playing 17.6 minutes a game. So, again, a lot of these guys are the rotation players you're seeing on the G League side, like Josiah. And then you also have like a reserve player like Trayvon Duval. I think this is very interesting because with Trayvon Duval, former Duke guy, but he won a G League championship in 2019 with the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. And so, having at least that experience, I hope that he'll bring some of those winning habits, to the Swarm roster as they, match up against the Stockton Kings. So, yeah, I would say I don't even know who I'm going to go with because they're really good teams. They both. I'm trying to think. Yeah, this wasn't even like the number. I don't even think it was the number one teams. Last year, I think Stockton was number one and Osceola was number one. This year, it's not even number one seeds who made it, to the finals. And obviously, yes, like if you're a Lakers fan, you were upset because maybe JJ Redick pulled like a Duke Thero, Dalton Knecht, Kobe Buffkin, Nick Smith Jr., and maybe they would have won that game and then gone to the finals. But it is what it is. As soon as I saw that Luka and Austin Reeves injury, the first thing I thought about was those guys going back to the LA Lakers. But it is what it is. So that's just how the G League is. I think that kind of is probably it in terms of the matchup side. But man, I'm trying to decide who is gonna win this series. let's see. So I know Julian here, he's saying Greensboro. So maybe a Swarm win this. Like it's a possibility. Like maybe Greensboro can win this tomorrow, or I mean for the upcoming week. Um, let's see. I'm gonna look up that the defensive rating for these teams. So who has a higher defensive rating? Swarm. I mean that's close. That's super close. Like I don't even think there's much you can say on that one. So. One thing I do actually want to look at, I want to look at the opponent. I want to look at opponent 3-point shooting. Who is better at defending the perimeter 3? I'm a little bit curious about that. Let's see if it'll show me or not. Oh. Okay, so Stockton, interesting enough, is better at defending the 3 overall from both sides, but I'm going to take off, just do regular season, this is probably more important. Yeah, they were still the better team. And Greensboro was actually 16th at defending the 3. That's interesting. Okay, now let's see if we look at the last 10 games to see who is better at defending the 3. Okay, so Stockton was still really good at defending the 3, but then you look here, where's Greensboro here? Wow, Greensboro is 38.8% from defending a 3. Wow. Dang, I didn't know they were not doing that well from defending a 3 in the last 10 games. So now let's check playoffs. I'm a little bit more curious about all the playoffs here. Greensboro still, they were 10th in defending against 3-pointers. So, yeah, that's okay. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I think, if I have to go, then if I have to think more and more about this, if Greensboro's struggles, are with, I don't know, if their struggles are with, I don't know, if they're not good at shooting, I mean, if they're not good at defending a 3 as well, and then Daquan Jeffries, Dexter Dennis, like those guys are knocking down their shots, that could be a bit concerning. Just trying to think. Man, I'm torn. There's really, both of these teams have guys who are winners. Like one team won the G League championship last year. The other team has guys who won, the Summer League championship. I think, I just gotta have the roster in front of me now at this point. Greensboro Swarm roster. Stockton Kings roster. All right, let's see. So if I gotta go with somebody, trying to think. Let's see. Looking at the rosters here. So, man, they're very good teams because they have good players. Both of them, I think, have their strengths, but they also have their weaknesses. So it's hard to say. Okay, I'm gonna look back at the game. See if I can find their game from. Let's see, this month. I'm gonna see how they did against the it was the Magic. I want to see how they did in that game. I'm curious because let's see, Salon, he had 8 rebounds, 7 points. Again, knocking down a 3 is probably going to be the thing I think that might hurt them. Which is kind of crazy because Osceola, I guess they had 41% from 3. You definitely know that Greensboro shoots a lot more threes, especially with Lee McNeely and Tosan. Like, you're going to shoot a lot of threes. Um, let's see. Who, yeah, and then, it's a tough one still. Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna look at Stockton's. I'm gonna look at Stockton's schedule. I want to see how they did against South Bay on Sunday. I want to see ultimately how it looked. Again, looking back at the box score. So they shot 30% from three, and Stockton's like 32. So both not great, but it's also about like consistency too. Like, who's going to be consistent at the end of the day? I mean, Elmore. I think one thing about Elmore is that sometimes he'll pass. He goes in and then tries to kick it out. So that's one thing, he drives and kicks out. And they move the ball. That's one thing about Stockton I noticed when I was watching that team, is they really move the ball when they, with their 3-point shooting too. So, man, I don't know. Like, I'm torn because, like, again, I want to say Stockton, but at the same time, I feel like Greensboro will surprise me. And we have to keep in mind, like, DJ Baker is a really good coach. He's also in Motor City recently, but also Will Scott. He's also a great coach. So it's like, it's hard to say. Like, these are, again, it feels so evenly matched. I might have to flip a coin at this point. Do I? I might. You know what? At this point, this comes down to a coin toss. But I literally don't even know. Like, yeah, okay, good. I have like a quarter here. So, all right, we're gonna flip a coin at this point. So, heads. Okay, I'm gonna go with heads. Here is Greensboro, and then tails, Stockton. Okay, heads. So Greensboro, I got Greensboro winning it. We'll see how it goes. But I'm really excited about this finals. This is the 25th year anniversary of the G League. This is a really huge accomplishment as we continue to see the G League expanding over the years and how it's grown. And so I'm really excited. I will be at Friday's game against the Stockton Kings. Against the Greensboro Swarm in Stockton. So I'm really excited for that one. So if you're there, please do say hi. But yeah, I do want to kind of start now transitioning to the next part of our stream here. So I want to talk about the awards of this G League season. And so pretty much I'm going to kind of go through like all the different ones. I want to first talk about the awards that I think stand out to me. I think that they don't always like get talked a lot about, but I think they're really interesting. You should go read about them. Let me see if I can go back and find it. So this first one was So right here, Max Abmas. So Max Abmas, he won the G League Sportsmanship Award. And so, it's just a really cool thing. Kind of sum this up. This is an award for a guy who, he was one of the really great teammates with the Salt Lake City Stars. He won the Showcase MVP honors. But what really stood out to me reading this, and I thought this was really cool, is that he's really emphasizes academics, including with sports. Seeing in this reading here that he talks about putting the team first, lifting his teammates up when needed, and leads by example. Katie Benzon is describing, the GM of the Salt Lake City Stars. He's always interacting with fans, supporting teammates, and representing the community. And he talks about spending time autographing, engaging with young fans, but often encouraging them to take pride in their academic journeys and long-term goals. I really love that. So I think that was a really cool thing. G League awarded Max here, so I just want to shout him out. Also, then shout out Isaiah Roby, former OKC Thunder and Dallas Maverick draft pick, who's now returned to the Westchester Knicks after playing for them 2 seasons ago. He won, or I guess was awarded, the G League Assist Award winner, or G League 2025-2026 NBA G League Community Assist Award. So, this is a this is somebody who really put out time and effort in the community. I really loved how they talked about his story here about being in a single parent household, him and his brothers, and how important it is to give back in the community. And even if it's not always like financially, but just with leadership, mentorship, advice, just being a good role model for the community. I really respected that, and so I really do think you all should check this article out by G League. I think it's really awesome. So shout out Isaiah Roby for the 2025-2026 NBA G League Community Award, Community Assist Award. All right, so now I'm getting on to pretty much the other positions in the stream. So NBA G League Coach of the Year, I want to talk about Victor Galvani. He is the head coach of the Mexico City Capitanes. He took over for, I believe it was Raymond Diaz, who was the previous head coach of Mexico City, who was one of the longest tenured coaches, technically, in the G League, because he was part of the Capitanes as a head. He was part of being a head coach with them previously before they even joined the G League. But Victor, he did a very good job, taking this team to the playoffs for the first time in the G League, and so just shout him out. Fantastic work with him. They were tied or close to being the first #1 seeded team in the G League this year, and so fantastic job. I believe he was assistant summer league coach for maybe the Cavs, like at one point. So yeah, I think he has a bright future. I'm really excited for him. And then next thing I want to talk about was actually Executive of the Year. Lyron Fannin. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But the executive for the Cleveland Charge. Let's pull up all the transactions the Charge made, because I did have this up earlier. Let's see. Okay. Duplicate this. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. So pretty much, I think what really stands out is some of the guys that that Lyron was able to get this year as the head coach. Some of the guys that she was able to bring in as players, for this roster, but also, they had a new head coach too this year. So a lot of new things moving with this team. I actually don't. I'm trying to think. Did this team have a returner from last year? I'm not too sure. I don't believe so, or maybe they had one or two. Besides, okay, yeah, they had Darius Brown, right, and Warif Alatishe. Yes, I do remember. So they had a couple of guys, but Channing Johnson, he was called up this year. Killian Hayes, he was also called up this year. Tristan Enaruna, he got called up, but he also, it was to Cleveland, which is a really cool part here. Norchad Omir, he was called up as well, but actually to the LA Clippers. And then, you just saw, like, what I thought would really intrigue me was that, when they had guys who went down or weren't healthy, like, she was able to bring in players that kind of work those margins of the G League roster, had to kind of bring in that depth, especially during that FIBA qualifying time where they're playing those qualifiers before, like, during the Thanksgiving break. So just kind of scouting and looking for those guys, like, and then Chase Jeter, I really liked his game with the Go-Go. So just bringing in those different guys, her getting Isaiah Hawthorne. I think it's just smart about. She found good players from the player pool who were able to contribute. Especially when they had guys who might have had to, like, get called up or who were injured, and so I really respected that. Some of the really good moves too is getting Riley Minix. Riley Minix is returning rights. She was able to get she used some good draft picks, but that's what you want to do, because you want to eventually kind of funnel them to the Cavaliers. That's ultimately the goal, and so that did work out for Riley Minix here, what she was able to do. Tristan Enaruna, he won the 2025-26 G League Most Improved Player Award. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. But even other things, they traded for Emmanuel Miller, which you don't see a lot. Obviously, this wasn't just her; it was technically the Cavaliers organization, as part of that Keon Ellis trade, like the three-team trade. But it was still cool that they were even able to get Emmanuel Miller. So I think, I was impressed. Obviously, the Victor Oladipo trade, this was a really big trade that happened. I really thought he was going to play this year with the Charge after after they traded him there. But they have his returning rights if he ever comes back in the future. But, again, just impressed that she was able to, despite all the guys that got called up, whether it was, guys up to different teams or guys within their own organization, who then might have also had to spend more time in the NBA side if there was ever injuries with the Cavaliers. And then, even I remember here, she brought in Malachi Branham, who returned home to play, with the, in Cleveland. So, I just think overall, I totally understand this. She totally deserves this. So congrats to Lyron. This is a huge, huge accomplishment. I love one of my favorite things in the summer is looking at all the draft picks, analyzing it as we kind of get closer to the next year's G League season. So, really excited to see her future. And you have to keep in mind, right here, this name right here, Trajan, or Trajan, wait, Langdon. Okay, Trojan. If I'm saying that right. So he's a GM of the Detroit Pistons. He really turned around that Pistons organization. So you never know who could very likely be in the NBA front office one day. So just a cool thing. Just want to kind of highlight there as well. All right, so to kind of keep going here. So I want to start talking a little bit about more of the awards of maybe some of the other, kind of the players now side. So Tristan Enaruna. Now I'm going to pull up his stats. I was impressed by, and it makes so much sense how he got most improved. Look at what his stats were when he was with the Maine Celtics. Look at what his stats were look at his stats when he was with the Cleveland Charge. You can see a 10-point increase, 37.8% from three, 1.2 steals. I mean, this is almost the same amount of time, so you can really see he really upped his game this year. He had a good summer league. He didn't get a two-way going into the season, so he had to really earn that spot this year, and it was really well deserved. I do remember there was points where I thought he looked really good last year in Maine, but I didn't know if he was ever going to get called up. So I'm really happy when he returned back to Cleveland. He played at Cleveland State. It was really nice to see him back, with the team, with the organization, or with the, his home state, and that he played at college there. So it was nice to see that. But really, really deserves this award. Talk about the next player here. So let's talk about Jamarian Sharp. Jamarian Sharp, he had won Defensive Player of the Year for the G League this year, and 4.1 blocks. That is insanely impressive. We'll see if what he continues to do, but moving forward in his career. But again, defensively, it's always very impressive what he can do. He's 7'5". That's one of the big things about him. But again, can really block shots. So not really too surprised. I kind of saw this coming. I think Elijah Martin, he might have been second or third to get this award. We'll kind of see when I get to the defensive team, but I believe he was second or third in the rankings for Defensive Player of the Year. Sean Padula, very talented guard out of Ole Miss. He, I was watching the San Diego Clippers versus South Bay Lakers game, and he was impressive. A lot of the Lakers fans were really getting annoyed at him because he was so good at scoring, three-point shooting. He knew when to make the right read. He knew when to pass out versus shoot. Very impressed by him, but a lot of huge Lakers fans. A lot of Lakers fans started becoming fans of him. So really respect this. Very well deserved. So he had a really good year. So, and actually, I kind of, because he played for a remix, I did mean to kind of talk about this. I'm gonna go back here quickly to Coach of the Year. So one thing too to mention is that for Greensboro Swarm, I believe, I think the GM of the Swarm, I know his name, because Cole Teal, I believe maybe he was, I believe, second or third in the voting for G League Executive of the Year, and I believe DJ Baker might have been second in voting for G League Coach of the Year. But a coach who I was really actually impressed with, who wasn't part of maybe the running, was actually the Rip City Remix head coach Jonah Harescu. Like what he did, like Dylan Jones was called up, Sean Padula was called up, Blake Kinson was called up. Despite that, he was still able to lead this team to the playoffs for the first time in their franchise. So I am really impressed actually by Jonah Harescu. I hope that he does come back next year, and I just hope that he continues to get considered more for the NBA down the line. But was really also impressed. I know he wasn't on this list or anything, but just somebody I did want to kind of mention as well. So did I go through pretty much all? I think I went through Defensive Player of the Year, year. Okay, so obviously we got to talk about Mac McClung. I think Mac McClung is the first player in G League history to win 2 G League MVPs. And so, look, I think he is the best player in the G League, guys, like ever in history. I think so. Like he broke the scoring record. He's obviously a 3-time NBA Slam Dunk champion, 2-time G League MVP. He's won a G League championship. Now he just hopefully will get some more minutes in this final week with Chicago. I'm really hoping he gets those minutes. I think this is last year on a 2-way contract, so he's not going to be able to play any more minutes on a 2-way. So we'll see what happens next. I don't know if he's going to go overseas, or maybe he plays again in G League trying to get a standard contract. But he's a guy who can really score the ball. It was cool seeing him play against Phoenix the other day. He was scoring, I think, on Devin Booker at times. So really talented at scoring the ball. So I really, really hope he gets his opportunity and hopefully make the NBA and stay for the rest of his career. So continue to root for him. But yeah, I would say those were some of the award winners. Now I do want to kind of get into here. I want to talk about the first team. So we did talk about Mac McClung. Some obvious standouts like Tristan Noon. And these were guys who really put up big numbers. Lester Quinones, Isaac Jones. I mean, Isaac Jones, he had a huge stretch where you could have honestly thought maybe he had a shot. Daquan Jeffries, again, we talked about him earlier. One of probably the top players for Stockton this year. Second team, we have Kobe Buffkin, Drew Timme, Killian Hayes, AJ Lawson, and Jameer Young. I think this is really respectable because this is a very good. This is really good for a second team for the G League. And then the third all NBA G League third team here, we got Reggie Dennis, PJ Hall, Ron Harper Jr., Elijah Martin, and Deshaun Nix. Who do you think got snubbed that should have been on this list? I'm curious if you have any thoughts. I'm kind of curious if Zion Poland should have. I thought he played well, but I didn't actually. Let me see Zion Poland's stats. I'm trying to remember what his stats were. He might have been a guy who maybe I thought could have. Yeah, that's why I was a little surprised. He's a guy who I thought maybe should have been on this list, but I don't know if it was they have a rule where they have to play a certain amount of games, so that could have also played a part of it. I don't know if the G League has a 65. Well, they don't have a 65 game rule because obviously there's not 65 games in the G League season, but maybe they have a 35 game rule. I don't fully know. I'd have to actually check or look more into that. But just shout out these guys because they were all very good for their teams this year. Really happy to see Ron Harper Jr. get that 2-year contract. Shout him out for sure. And so, let's continue to see what these guys do, for the next part of their career. One last thing, actually, did not talk about as we talk about this finals is a really important thing is the G League Finals MVP. You know, I think the G League Finals MVP is very valuable when you're a young player trying to make it to the NBA, because I think it's um, a great resume piece. Because Pascal Siakam, you know, he's a player who won the G League Finals MVP. Actually, let me see if I can pull it up really quick. NBA G League Finals MVP. Yes, perfect. Okay, so previous years, right? We've seen Isaiah Hartenstein. You know, he's now playing NBA minutes. We've seen Pascal Siakam. These were really young guys, you know, trying to make it to the NBA. And so another guy who's recently starting to get more of an opportunity is Ousmane Dieng. And so Ousmane Dieng, you know, I think he's having a really good year right now with Milwaukee. I wonder if I can. I won't show you the stats. Let's see. Yeah, ever since he got traded to Milwaukee, which I thought was a fantastic move by John Horst's team. Yeah, he's averaging 10.8 points per game. He's shooting 36.3% from three, 4.3 rebounds, 3.1 assists, almost 1 steal a game. Again, this isn't about finding the next NBA All-Star. This is about finding a really good player for your NBA team and who can, you know, play in the NBA long term. And that's something, you know, Isaiah Hartenstein, he's really been able to do very well with OKC. And then Siakam, he's been fantastic for Indiana. So, you know, just wanted to really shout out, you know, wanted to really talk about how important that is, because I think, you know, we'll see who ends up winning the Finals MVP. Like whether it's maybe it's Liam McNeely, maybe it's on Greensboro's side, maybe Greensboro's side of it, maybe it's Tidjane Salaün. Like we'll see. Maybe it's Keontae Johnson, like Antonio Reeves. It could be any of those guys, but maybe Stockton's like Daquan Jeffries, Dexter Dennis, like John Elmore. So Patrick Bowman Jr. Like any of these guys could have a shot at winning the Finals MVP. So yeah, that was the last thing I want to talk about for I guess like the finals side, and then pretty much all the awards. And yeah, let's see. So I'm trying to think. I don't have any questions, which which is pretty makes sense. It is pretty late right now, but we are gonna be back doing chapter 3, which is gonna be our last chapter of the season. And really, it's about talking about the off season, talking about what is next for a lot of these players, like what happens after the G League season ends. I will talk all about that, so we will be right back. This is the NBA 2K G League show, and I'm about to take a break. Post this right here. Be back in 5 minutes. Sign. Okay. All right. See you back soon. All right, we're back. So we're gonna talk about the off season. What does the off season mean when it comes to the NBA G League? So some people were asking me about this on Twitter. So let me first kind of break this down. So the players in the G League are free agents, especially when it comes to the summer. I mean, there's no G League, so a lot of what happens I've seen over the years is that there's leagues that start in April and they end in July, or they might end at the end of June. Like the BSN, it's like I believe it's a league in Puerto Rico. Um, that's a league where I've seen players who, right after the G League season ends, they go there, and so they can continue to make money. Especially those guys who aren't on a two-way contract, who are on an NBA contract. This is an opportunity for them to go just make some more money. And so then Summer League happens. Summer League is July. And that's an opportunity for those guys who maybe they're trying to make it to, not like maybe they're trying to get an overseas deal. Because there's a lot of, it's the NBA Summer League. It's not just the NBA guys who are scouting, it's guys from overseas who are also scouting players for their overseas teams. You have to keep that in mind. Like I didn't even think about this, but even at the showcase, I learned in my interview with NBA agent BJ Bass, I want to shout him out, talked about how these guys are also scouting from overseas. So this is the opportunity where these guys are kind of now testing, going overseas, playing in the G League again, maybe trying to get another call up. Some guys they might not want to play overseas right now. Like they might want to stay in the U.S. You have to keep in mind these guys have families. They're going through situations where they might want to stay at home right now. Some guys might want to return home. Like they might want to play in their home state, closer to family. Like there's a lot of things that go into these situations. What I've noticed over the years, and so. These are things to just kind of keep in mind when it comes to these players. They're not bound to stay with the G League team next year. Again, it's returning rights. Now, the CBA is about to change returning rights. I think now it's going to be like if a player is pretty much new to the G League, their returning rights only last for a year. This is something I have to kind of understand because this is something new that's about to start, like this upcoming 2026-27 G League season. But there still is returning rights, and so we're going to start seeing this year, players as returning rights get traded to different teams, and then sometimes what even happens too is that some returning rights got traded before Summer League. Like I think last year we saw Cameron McGriff, I believe. His returning rights got traded to the Salt Lake City Stars before Summer League, and then he was part of the Utah Jazz's Summer League team, so he kind of knew he was going to be playing with that organization, even the G League team this year. So things to kind of be looking at, it's kind of when it comes to these players and kind of what's next for them, and kind of what's next for the team. The teams, they're scouting, right? Like they're scouting, guys right now in college who, if they don't think is projected like an NBA draft pick, but is projected to play in the G League, they're trying to look for who is going to be that next rotation player. They're watching March Madness. They're watching college basketball. They're watching guys, who might be could be high school, guys in high school that are eventually going to play college basketball. And so, scouts are scouting. They're looking to bring guys potentially for the G League team. Again, at Summer League, that's a huge thing. Agents are having meetings, trying to get their guys, to a different organization. They're trying to get them to an ideal one that's best for their, who they're managing. And so, also tryout players, I believe rule is that. Now, here's the thing: there's tryout players who can show up in the G League and technically just kind of show up and, pretty much just try out and they could make the team. There's also tryouts where it's, each G League team is allocated 3 tryout players, and it's not necessarily that they'll have tryouts open to the public, but it's tryouts like they're allocating that spot to a player as a tryout player. So For example, like if there's a player who's a tryout player on a G League team, he was not allowed to play summer league technically. The summer, before like there are rules when it comes to being a tryout player technically, with the G League. And so these GMs are scouting those guys too because they can then use them as tryout players, like designate them as well. But it's not guaranteed they'll even make the team at the end of the day. So just things that what these front offices are doing is they're looking for those players. And yeah, I think that's like some of the big components. And like I said, we talk about these trades. I want to talk about and we'll talk about Cormac Ryan trade, Wisconsin Herd. So back in September, we saw Cormac Ryan's returning rights get traded from the OKC Blue to the Wisconsin Herd, and it was in exchange for Steven Richardson and a first-round pick in the 2026 NBA G League draft. So that is important because these draft picks and returning rights, they can help to get a guy eventually who is doing great right now in Milwaukee. That is ultimately the goal, and that's why you do these trades and you scout out for players and in these situations. And so that's kind of an important thing I want to mention as well. And watch out, Cormac Ryan is having a great season too with the Bucks right now. And so I think those are some important things to kind of be thinking about as we kind of go into this off season. There's also the G League International Draft, which happens in June. I need to actually kind of work through if I can figure out the order for that. It's not like every team drafts in that, but typically there's international players who don't have returning rights who could become NBA draft eligible. Not all of them, but some guys are NBA draft eligible eventually in the future. And so it's kind of like an opportunity for some of these teams to look at guys. I think actually Stockton has a player, I believe Nathan Messiah Dio, NBA G League International Draft 2025. I believe he was the second pick. Yes, yep. He was the second pick in the G League International Draft. And he's actually, I think he was cut, but then, I don't know if he was with the Stars actually to start off. I think he was with the Texas Legends maybe, but then eventually he ended up with Stockton. So, that's the thing. Some of these guys can eventually declare for the NBA draft. Last year saw Isaac Nunez, he was NBA draft eligible, and then he finally declared. So, that's also another thing as they're kind of starting to build out their rosters for next year. Again, it's a lot of scouting now for the front office. Again, relationship building is really important too. Continue to have good relationships with agents, with players, as you're kind of building your team. You see some of these guys from the G League team will probably play for Summer League. You'll probably see some overlap. I remember recently I was listening or watching the game, but listening to is it Chad Buchanan of the, I think it is him. He's, make sure. Noblesville Boom GM. Oh, no, sorry. I was mixing it. Chad Buchanan, I think, was with the Indiana Pacers. Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor was on the broadcast recently when the Boom were playing, I think it was the Charge. But, what he talked about was, that some of the guys from the Boom will potentially play with the Summer League team. So that's just, again, it's all about these guys are just having the opportunity to show not just to that NBA organization, they're trying to show to all 30 teams in the NBA that they can hopefully maybe get that two-way contract, maybe get a G League spot on their G League team and eventually get that two-way contract. Then eventually from that two-way contract, they're trying to get converted, and then from that conversion, they're trying to stay and make it into the rotation of the NBA roster, and then from there, eventually, maybe they'll start a few games, here and there. It's the margins. It's taking steps. That's just how I kind of look at it. I've noticed that over the years. It's gaining trust. It's kind of staying in the organization. Being a stay-ready guy. That's the cool thing about the G League is these guys are learning to become those stay-ready guys, and then they have to get to the NBA, and then they might be those stay-ready guys again. And so, yeah, that's just something I want to talk about. Try to think of anything else I'm going to talk about on that end, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, it really is it. I cannot think of anything else. So thank you so much for again tuning in. I have again G League content I'm still working on. Videos are going to be coming out this summer. I have some things I'm excited about that you guys will find out really soon. So, but again, always appreciate the support. You know, wherever you are in the world, whether it's if it's the morning, I hope you're having a great morning. If it's the afternoon, I hope you're having a great afternoon. If it's late at night or evening, just hope you're having a great evening or night. So this is the NBA 2K G League show. I'm your host, Varun Charia, and have a great rest of your day, rest of your night, and